Hey everyone, this is Josh Reduces Cracked with the intro episode to Applied Game Theory. Krantz will be with me for the actual, meat of the series. For this little intro, I just wanted to kind of ease you into what you can expect throughout this series. I'm really, really excited about this series. I think I think a lot of people are looking for this, and hopefully it answers some of the questions that you all have. And before I go any further, um, the comments and the questions and all of that are very, very useful, especially for a series like this. We've got 2 weeks in between videos, which I think is perfect to give everyone time to kind of digest everything and work on things on your own. Gives us time to really make sure that we're going in the right direction. So the comments and the questions are really useful in guiding us in the right directions and letting us know what you want to see. The lead time will not be too far in advance, so your comments really have the potential to shape the series. The first thing that's important to get out of the way is game theory is math. And if anyone tries to sell you on the idea that you can learn game theory without math, they're just doing you a huge disservice, because that's just not how it is. Game theory is math, and you need numbers to apply game theory. It doesn't have to be crazy complicated math, and it's typically not. So it's just you have to use math. That's all. It doesn't have to be calculus or anything like that. Math is important in poker. This, hopefully I don't really need to sell anyone on anymore. 8 years ago I had to argue with people that soul reads and psychology were not more important than math. I'm not discounting the ability to form good reads. That's a hugely important skill in poker. But math is very important in poker. This is where I think the disconnect lies for a lot of people. Game theory is the math of poker. If you're running poker math and it's not specifically targeted toward one villain type, like if you don't have some really good read on your opponent that you could target your analysis toward, then, and even if you do, you should be using game theory to structure your mathematical analysis. And that's what it is. Game theory puts this structure and these rules in place for applying your math to poker. And it's not like we're just kind of dropping this whole game theory blanket over the game. We're using game theory to target our analysis and to lead us in the right direction in a way that can lead us towards some really meaningful results, because that's what we're going for here. We're getting meaningful and actual proof of things, not just guesses and hunches and things like that. We're getting proof, and you can absolutely prove these things are the case. It's not like you can only prove that things are wrong. You can prove that things are right. So the point of this series is to be your game theory starter kit of sorts. And I see a lot of posts on the DC forums. How do I start a GTO? I don't know where to start. I don't know how to begin. What's the first step? And all of these things. And it feels like you're on this top of a ski mountain, and the only way down is this double black diamond course with trees and powder and moguls or whatever else. And it just feels like if you try to go down this, you're just going to fail miserably. The point of this series is to be the bunny slope, to ease you into this so that we can gradually make the decline steeper and steeper, and eventually you can kind of go out on your own and figure things out. Again, it's going to be challenging. There's no way around that. It's not going to be hard. So what's the difference between hard and challenging? Hard, to me, hard is something that maybe can't be done. Everything in this series will be doable, will be feasible, even if you're not particularly good at mathematics. And that's a big goal for this series. But it's going to be challenging. Working through some of the problems, some of the homework assignments we might be assigning, they may be difficult or challenging to work through, but they're not going to be hard. They're not going to be to a point where you need to learn calculus or you need to take a course in mathematics to understand it. That's not what we're going for here. But you will have to work, and you will have to really think about some things. And it might be the case where you work on something and you just don't get it, and 2 days later you come back and it clicks. And that's what a lot of this is about. Something that hits home a little bit for me is the idea of theoretical versus experimental. By theoretical, I mean solving toy games, running, calculations and setting calculations equal to each other and finding indifference points and all of these sorts of things. That's really important, but it's not as fun. So I will stress the experimental side of things. The experimental side of things is running simulations in Card Runners EV, and just kind of seeing how strategies play against each other. That stuff, for me, I think is really fun, and you really get to see the mechanics of the game. But it's still important to have some theoretical grounding. And then this video is going to be slightly more theoretical, still with an experimental spin, but that's where kind of the numbers come into play, is the theoretical side of things. What is alpha? How do we, how do we make a certain hand indifferent? And things like that. That's a little bit more of kind of the theoretical. And as a result of this first video being more of the theoretical, naturally that's going to mean more of a classroom style format, at least for the first half of the video, and a little bit of more of a Josh to Jay ratio than you should come to expect. So, hopefully as the weeks progress, you'll get less me, more Jay. But in sort of setting the groundwork, that's kind of more my territory. And this is kind of going to be like we'll call this the theme of the first two videos. Equilibria are magical. You can learn a lot just from studying what happens at equilibrium, the things that have to be true for it to be an equilibrium, how you can exploit someone who deviates from the equilibrium. So I think this will be a really good introduction to game theory, is seeing, because this is, that's the holy grail, is to find the equilibrium for the entire game. But if we look at, equilibrium for kind of sub situations, you still can learn a lot about how to structure your ranges, how to map your ranges to kind of this structure that's put in place. So I have some other resources. So this is just a really good post by Stan Moore. That gives you some idea of where you can go and read this in right here. I'll have some other videos and stuff that you can read. I know Will Tipton's book in particular, I think it's called Heads Up No Limit Hold'em, is supposed to be very good. That's the very top of my list of things to read. There have been so many great threads on Deuces Cracked, and hopefully this series will help you understand what's going on in those a little bit better. And if you don't understand, then this thread is the right place, or these video threads are the right place to pose these sorts of questions. And just to bring that up, that's important for me, is I just don't consider most things in video threads, anything to do with game theory, I think is fair game. So if you have any other questions, doesn't necessarily have to be directly related to the video, I think that's fair game. If you're not comfortable with Math of Poker, this is where you go. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, I haven't seen the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is the #1 most viewed series of all time on Deuces Cracked, because it's really withstood the test of time and just really well done. So if you don't feel comfortable with poker math at all, then you should probably watch this series before continuing with this current series, because I'd kind of consider this series to be the successor to this series. How can we take these fundamentals that Wilt taught us and apply them in a more advanced manner? So Math Attacks, Bellatrix, I don't know how to say it. But she did this series on the book The Mathematics of Poker. Specifically episode 13 is on the Ace King Queen game, which is very similar to what you'll be seeing today. That's another book that'll give you the theoretical understanding of things. If you don't feel comfortable using Excel or running EV tables, this mentor video I did very recently will be a good kind of tutorial for that, to get you going with creating EV tables, because I don't want to focus on that too much for this series. Applied Math is another series. I'm giving myself some shameless plugs here. Applied Math is another series where I, specifically the first two videos, I go through a lot of EV tables, looking at a toy game. So that may be a good supplement to the first two videos of this. Might be a good supplement, or maybe first three would be a good supplement to what we're doing in this series. If you're interested in the experimental side of things, I created this entire series, it's still going, There'll Be Homework, is is supposed to be, experimental game theory. That's exactly what it's all about. And so if you're interested in that sort of thing, you should watch that. Just be careful with episode 2. There were some missteps. So if you can skip episode 2 if you want to watch it, then I would recommend watching episode 3 shortly thereafter to see the solutions to the problems that came up. The series REM is generally about exploiting the tendencies of your player pool. However, the first 2 videos do a great job of explaining the difference between exploitative poker and unexploitable poker. And I mean, the whole series is just great because I think if you can combine REM, everything that Mick is teaching, with a good game theory founded approach, which is also something else he's working on, you're just going to be absolutely dominant. So I think, yeah, it makes it really good. Even though it seems like it's kind of the opposite, there's, just to stress this again, a good exploitive player is a perfect match for a game theory founded approach to poker. And finally, Jay's documentary with Dan, our own DJ Sensei, and Taylor Ryan created a documentary called Bet Raise Fold. Hopefully you all have heard of this. It just came out. When this video releases, it will have come out 2 days ago. It's just incredibly well done. It does just a great thing getting the story out there about the legitimacy of poker and how people's lives have been affected by the game itself and all the events that have happened. And so you all should check that out. I think it's just betraisefoldmovie.com. And in some minor news, a little overshadowed here, but this is my 200th video, so a little bit of a milestone for me. And finally, the last thing I want to do is go over some of the software that we'll be using throughout this series. This is Cardrunners EV. We'll be using this more than any other software throughout the series. I can say that with confidence. We have a discount available for Deuces Cracked members. I'll provide the link for that in this video's thread. I think the discount is down to like $75 or $80, which is just extremely reasonable. I think it's clearly a positive ROI for most people if you have any intentions of exploring real poker math or game theory. The next software is Pro Poker Tools Odds Oracle. If you play PLO, then this is you must have this. But I'm kind of experimenting with PLO, but I mostly still play Hold'em. So I still use this all the time. It's incredibly valuable piece of software. It's better for data analysis, but that's a perfect complement to the Cardrunners EV analysis. This is Flopzilla, which is relatively expensive. I think it's $35. Really good for kind of seeing what your range looks like, and seeing how it hits different boards and building ranges and things like that. And then this is Poker Ranger, which is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of poker utilities, because it does a lot of different things between picking ranges and seeing what your equity is on the next card, and seeing how your range breaks down in terms of equity. And it's also a really good program that's fairly new. So with all of that said, I hope you'll continue on to the foundation episode of this series. And thanks for watching this intro. It's been Josh for Deuces Cracked.